And she was in the infusion chair, and both chairs on either side of her were empty. And I asked the nurse if it was a slow day, and she said, no, we were supposed to be busy. And I said, well, where are they, Pat? And she said, Ron, they can't afford to get here. And I said, well, what do they do? And she looked at me and she said, they die.
Leadership is everywhere. In our work, in our family, in our community. We see leaders by their actions. We know their legacy. This podcast is about leaders, people just like you, doing amazing things every day. I hope these stories inspire you, they motivate you, and they fuel your leadership legacy. My name is Vicki Guy. Welcome to Ignite. Hi, and welcome to Ignite. Two words that can be used to describe characteristics of a great leader are love and humility. And these are exactly the words that come to my mind when describing our guest today. Ron Farb and Rory Causseaux are each pouring their hearts into what they believe in and making a difference along the way. As the founder of the Climb for Cancer Foundation, Ron shares his path for the creation of the foundation and his vision for the future. Ron and Rory together, as the leading voices of the foundation, stress the importance of giving back to our community in any way that we can. After this short break, we'll be back to talk to Ron and to Rory.
Welcome to IT Pro TV, an e-learning company with thousands of hours of engaging video training for IT teams, with fresh training courses added daily. What makes IT Pro TV stand out? It all starts with our edutainers, who create better than classroom experiences for training your team will look forward to watching.
So an edutainer is someone who takes a topic, an educational topic, and makes it more fun, enjoyable. My vision for IT Pro TV was to make the product that I wish I had when I got started.
The dashboard's great because you can pick up right where you left off, you can see new courses that are available, and you also have access to a variety of study tools with a membership.
You can follow along with virtual labs and test your skills with practice tests. IT leaders can also take advantage of the Pro Portal to help their team grow.
The IT Pro TV Pro Portal gives leaders the power to manage their investment in IT training. They can assign seats and courses and check in on progress to ensure their outcomes are being met.
And unlike traditional training, you aren't handcuffed to your desk. Sure, you can watch from there or from your couch with Apple TV and Roku apps or from anywhere using mobile apps. The training is even available for download. If you're ready for your team to watch and learn, check out the flexible plan choices online and request a live demo for your business today at www.itpro.tv.
Hi, and welcome back to Ignite. Today we're joined with Ron Farb and Rory Causseaux, two gentlemen here today talking about the Climb for Cancer. Gentlemen, welcome to Ignite. How are you?
Just great. Thank you, Vicki. Really enjoy being here.
Great. Well, I have got lots of great questions for you, and we have a lot of good information to share with our listeners today. So, Ron, I want to start with you.
Sure.
Because I know that the Climb for Cancer Foundation is really it was your vision. You started it many years ago with your wife, Diane. But before we get into that, I want to hear a little bit about some of the reasons that you decided to start a foundation called Climb for Cancer Foundation. What was the reason for it, and how did that begin?
Of course. So I had friends, Dorothy and Hamilton Jordan, that started a camp for children with cancer in Georgia called Camp Sunshine. And I had lunch with him one day. He was the CEO of the ATP Tour in Ponte Vedra, and I was a member there. And they asked me if I would volunteer at camp. And of course, I was excited about the opportunity. I went up there and spent a week with the children, and it changed my life profoundly and forever. And I knew that I wanted to do more than just volunteer that 1 week and write a personal check every year. And I found a crazy way of raising money through my hobby, which was climbing mountains. Mm. So in 2001, I decided to climb my second of the 7 summits, Aconcagua, the highest in South America, and raised money for the American Cancer Society. And then the next year I climbed Denali or Mount McKinley in Alaska, the highest in North America, and again raised money for the American Cancer Society. But in September of 2003, Diane and I got our 501c3 and started our foundation because we wanted more control over where the money was going to go and exactly how it was going to be used.
So that's a lot of activity that you just talked about in a very short amount of time. So I want to rewind just a moment and go back to something that you said about that experience of volunteering with the children changed your life. How did it change your life, and what impact did it have on you to make you feel like, you know, I want to do something different, I want to give more than volunteering? Because most people, for volunteering, it takes up a lot of time, energy, sometimes money, and that's enough to kind of fill that desire. But for you, it wasn't. How did it change your life to make you move forward?
Well, you know, Vicki, I've had a very comfortable life. I've been successful in business, but something was missing here. And that week with the children who climb Mount Everest every day of their lives really was an eye-opening experience for me, what they go through. And I knew right then and there that I wanted to do everything I could to help them. At the same time, my sister had been diagnosed with cancer. So cancer became my enemy, and my life was changed forever.
Yeah, and sometimes your enemies can drive you to do things that you wouldn't normally do under different circumstances. You had mentioned that, you know, people that are suffering or been diagnosed with cancer, they're climbing those mountains every single day. So it sounds like you're using that analogy, and that's part of, you know, one of the reasons that you chose to marry that partnership between your hobby, which was climbing, and a nonprofit to raise money to help those patients and families. Is that pretty accurate?
It is accurate, and that's why we call it Climb for Cancer. It's a metaphor for climbing through the obstacles of the disease, the trials and tribulations that the cancer patient and the family members go through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about with the Climb for Cancer, but I want to also just kind of take a step back and talk about your own climbs for just a moment.
Sure.
Because for you to take this literal and figurative step to raise money for patients and families, you yourself have gone through a lot of journeys, whether it be climbing mountains or, as you mentioned, supporting your sister as she went through her journey as well. What was your biggest surprise in terms of how you prepared yourself, either mentally or physically, for any of the climbs that you've had?
Well, I never thought I'd be climbing the mountains that I've climbed. Again, I looked at it metaphorically, and I thought this is the best way to put my money where my mouth was. And I enjoyed, in 1992, I had climbed Kilimanjaro, and I enjoyed that. And so I said, well, why don't I try to climb the 7 summits? And as I say, I climbed Aconcagua in South America, Denali in North America. And then from there, I went to the country of Georgia in the old Soviet Union and climbed the highest in Europe, Mount Elbrus. And then in 2005, I went to Asia and climbed Everest.
Whew.
And it took a real commitment to climb these mountains. I had always been a gym rat, but I really had to step it up to accomplish those mountains. And again, I never thought I'd be doing that. If my parents were alive, they wouldn't believe what I've done. But it's worked out very well. I continue to climb at my advanced age, and we have to date raised over $2 million now.
That is unbelievable. And Rory, I'm not leaving you out of this. I'm coming for you. I know you're a climber too. But I think it's so impressive. I don't really oftentimes, and I'm sure many people don't oftentimes talk to somebody who has climbed Kilimanjaro, Everest, Aconcagua, I think I pronounced that correctly,
You did.
Mount Elbrus, McKinley,
Right.
all, you know, the 7 summits. It's pretty impressive. How have you been able, how did you train? Was it a physical train, a mental train? What was it that you had to do to prepare yourself to be able to summit these different amazing places around the world?
Well, it's both mental and physical, but to be honest with you, it's much more difficult mentally. So you have to have a lot of resolve. You have to prepare yourself as diligently mentally as you do physically. But physically, I really started training much harder than I had ever trained in my life. And fortunately, I had good trainers. I had good guides on the climb who prepared me very well, and things, they knew how important this was to me and helped me, and everything went well.
Mm. So I have to ask you before we move on is, what was the biggest, experience in terms of impact that you've had in your experiences in climbing? Whether it be a joyful experience or a scary experience, what is that one time when you remember that, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened?
Well, there is one that stands out far ahead of any experience I've had. In 2008, my sister Harriet climbed with me. She, to our knowledge, to the best of our knowledge, became the first person to ever climb Mount Kilimanjaro on chemotherapy. Mm. And we had no idea at the time how the metastasis was in such an advanced stage all through her peritoneum. And she persevered and did an amazing job. It was inspirational. I'll never forget that. And the next year she passed away, and then in 2010 I took her ashes up to the summit of Kilimanjaro, and she lives there today.
Hmm. Well, definitely a lot of hard work and heart work that you're doing, Ron, so that's really pretty amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that experience for her going up to Kilimanjaro with you was probably a life changer, as well. So the work that you're putting in, I mean, your experiences in climbing, but also you've got business savvy. You're, I think you retired in terms of as an executive in sales. I believe you were a pilot as well.
Yes.
In the military.
Yes.
So we could talk for a long time about some of the experiences that you've had, but I think all of those combined obviously have given you this drive, this passion to not only do good, but to make a difference. And so this Climb for Cancer Foundation, I know, has evolved from that. So hats off to you for all that you've done. So how long has the Climb for Cancer Foundation been in existence?
We started it in September of 2003.
Okay, yeah. And tell us a little bit about what the Climb for Cancer Foundation is.
Well, we're not a research-centered foundation, even though we've raised over $2 million now. $2 million, when you're talking about research grants, is a drop in the bucket. And we do give some seed money for research, but we try to support the families going through this terrible ordeal and look for programs that have immediate impact and are kind of underserved needs. The program that resonates most with our donors that I named after my sister Harriet is called Harriet's Helping Hand, which provides gas cards, food vouchers, and lodging assistance for cancer families. That need came out of a meeting I had with my sister when she was going through treatment in North Carolina. I took her to the cancer center and for infusion, and the parking charge was outrageous. Then we went upstairs to the infusion room, and she was in the infusion chair, and both chairs on either side of her were empty. And I asked the nurse if it was a slow day, and she said, no, we were supposed to be busy. And I said, well, where are they, Pat? And she said, Ron, they can't afford to get here. And I said, well, what do they do? And she looked at me and she said, they die. And that hit me like a sledgehammer.
Sure.
And I came home and I told Diane we had to do something about that. And then because I volunteer in pediatrics at our hospital, I noticed quite often that families were eating leftovers off of patient trays because they couldn't afford to go downstairs to the cafeteria or one of the food vendors. And again, that hit me like a sledgehammer. So we started the program, and that's what we look for. We look for programs that are underserved and have immediate impact, and try to alleviate some of the financial and emotional burden that cancer places on the families.
So unlike a lot of the foundations or fundraising that people do, what you are doing is really helping sustain daily living. It's really not targeted so much specifically at research, although some of it does go there. It also aids the family and the patient throughout just daily activities, getting to the hospital, et cetera. So
Exactly.
pretty interesting. And Rory, I know you are a big part of what the Climb for Cancer Foundation is today. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your role in working with Ron and helping bring that vision to life.
Certainly. So I guess if you listen for just a moment, you'll hear the sympathy, the empathy, the compassion that Ron has, and it can become contagious if you haven't had that bug touch you. Being around Ron for just a little while, it will. So for myself, my wife and I, we turned 50 just a couple of years ago, and during that period of time, we were looking for something we would do. Quite frankly, I'd never even been out of the United States at that point in time. And being friends with Ron, just got the exposure that, wow, we can celebrate our 50th birthday, but maybe we can give back. And so the opportunity to climb Kilimanjaro, to support Climb for Cancer, was kind of the origin or the beginning of what our relationship with Climb for Cancer has been. We believe in the cause of the foundation, but we also believe in the passion and compassion that Ron and Diane both share. And I think the bug has just kind of jumped on us as well.
Yeah, and so you're involved with the foundation in a role that is pretty instrumental in driving the strategy. Tell us a little bit about what your role is as part of that foundation.
So the foundation has a board. It's always had a board, but about 3 or 4 years ago now, Ron and Diane asked a group of people that they felt comfortable with and to come together, and we had a planning session. And that planning session kind of caught me by surprise, because with a foundation like this, you see the work it does, you know the beginning it has, but does it have an end? And that conversation was around succession, it was around sustainability, or sunsetting. And that was sort of fresh. It's like, really, it would sunset? And it's like, no way that can happen. And so, but at the same time, in order for it to be sustainable and it to be continued on in succession, Ron and Diane need additional help. So out of that planning session came the idea to reorganize the board, to re-engage, put some strategy together. And so that's what's happened now. So we're beginning our 3rd year under the reorganization under the present board. We have looked at long-term strategic plans in order for sustainability. Hopefully we're marching down the path that we've established. And at the same time, there's energetic folks that are on the board that come alongside with different skill sets, whether that's medical physicians or whether it's travel planners or whether it's business folks in the community, and we each bring some level of strength that can support the effort that Ron and Diane have in mind. We bring some checks and balances maybe, but present day assistance, but also keep in mind the long-term goal of where sustaining this organization.
Yeah. So I'm wondering from both of your standpoints, just like a corporation, a nonprofit has to have resources, a strategy, support, people all around them to be successful. What, in your opinion, has really lended itself to help the foundation grow over the last few years to be able to not sunset and to be able to move forward into the next, the next phase or the next version of whatever it's going to be?
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm the one that gets interviewed and articles are written about me and what have you because of the climbing, but it takes a village. My wife is one of the most wonderful, supportive women I've ever known in my life. She has a full-time job and she works daily on the foundation. It's hard work, but she does it willingly, and she reaps the rewards of her hard work. it takes a great board. It takes people like Rory, who's the chair of our board, to lead this board into the future. And it takes wonderful volunteers. We have a great group of both adult and student volunteers that help us with all of our events. And it's not just me. It's all of them that make this foundation move forward.
You talked about students being a part of the foundation and part of the reason for its success. Have you seen, either within the student group or perhaps with patients that the foundation has helped, or with volunteers that have come on to some of the excursions, have you seen the impact of the foundation in maybe a life-changing story or something that they've said to you? Can you think about a time when someone gave you an example or a story of how the foundation has impacted them, what it's done for them? I'm just wondering if there's anything that comes to mind about that.
Well, let's talk about the students. So we're very fortunate that there's a student organization here at the University of Florida called Alpha Epsilon Delta. It's the Pre-Health Honor Society. They have over 200 members that are going into the health professional field, doctors, nurses, PAs, vet, pharmacy, what have you. And they selected us as the recipient of their philanthropy, and they raise about $20,000 for us a year. I have 2 children, and now I have 200 and some odd children. They are so fantastic. They really give me hope for the future because they understand community service and philanthropy. They embrace it, and we just have such a great partnership with them and with some other student organizations as well. So that's the thing that helps me, get up every morning and work hard for this foundation because I get a chance to inspire them to give back as well.
Mm-hmm. Vicki, I could probably augment that as well.
Sure.
One of the things that we do is the scholarships for some students that are at the University of Florida. So if they were experiencing cancer during their education and had to drop out of school because of dealing with the treatments and all, these scholarships allow them to come back. And if you read some of the letters that they've written to Ron and Diane and now to the board, just to express their gratitude, the challenges they went through, the experience they had where they thought they'd given up hope because of this disease at an early age, having the opportunity financially to come back, complete their education, and most all of them become very passionate in the field of which physically impacted them. So it's a way for them to have a much more fulfilling life.
Yeah, good stuff. And just for our listeners, just to remind you, we're speaking with Ron Farb and Rory Causseaux. They're here to talk about the Climb for Cancer Foundation and really the amount of work and impact that you have on people's lives through the work that you're doing with the foundation. So I'm wondering from the standpoint of the activity that you've had so far with the community. How has the community embraced and supported what you do? Whether it's the community that you live in, or keep in mind our listeners are from all over the place. What has the community done to support that, and what can communities do to support organizations like the Climb for Cancer Foundation?
Rory, you want to take that?
So when it comes to need, the need is infinite. So the program that Ron mentioned, Harriet's Helping Hand, the one I mentioned, the scholarships, the seed money for the activities we do, just all of that together. We every year we go through a grant process. The University Health Department of the University Health Department, they give us a list of the grants, of the money they need. We can never meet all of the needs. So we need fundraising as our main effort. So we engage the community with a fun run, with a barbecue, with climbs, with trips. All these are activities that we can think of that would engage the community to give them an opportunity to participate, share the passion that Ron and Diane have, but also to contribute, because the monies that we receive then are all channeled back to UF Health. And through that process, we're able to benefit the grants that we get each year. All throughout the year, requests come in. It's hard to say no when Ron's heart is big enough to climb Mount Everest. It's also big enough to say yes to a request. And so the more money we raise, the more money we can do. So it's not about the money, but it's about the money when it comes to fundraising.
Sure.
And so really the strategy, the effort, and so we can give people opportunities too, the 5Ks, the trips that we take. If you want to get an experience, come alongside and climb Kilimanjaro and raise some money. You'll get an experience with the trip, but you'll also get an experience with the good that you can do, and you'll feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Sure. You know, and speaking of a heart that's big, also a strength that's big. I remember Ron carrying like 3 backpacks at a time. So certainly if you're on one of those trips, he'll carry your backpack. Sorry, Ron.
That's okay. And your viewers should know, Vicki, that you climbed Kilimanjaro with me.
And it was a life-changing experience for me, for sure, definitely. So now there is another event coming up that I wanted to talk about because I think it's pretty interesting, and it obviously goes, you know, in line with the Climb for Cancer theme in terms of embodying climbing as a metaphor for what a patient might go through chemo, or what the family might go through as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your new fundraiser that you guys are about to kick off?
Sure. So it's called 50-51, which stands for 50 States, 50 Peaks, 1 Goal. We did the event back in 2006, and I believe we set an unofficial world record, putting a team on the high point of 48 of the 50 states in 1 day. It was a monumental task, and we raised almost $100,000 for that experience. We did it a couple more times, but it wasn't quite as successful, and so we dropped the event. But we're going to bring the event back now that we have more of a support staff. And it's going to be a summer-wide event. It'll run from June the 1st to August the 31st, so people will have much more time to organize and be able to fit it into their schedule. And we hope by doing that, we'll have multiple teams in many of the states where the challenge isn't that great. We'll also be able to augment the event for those that can't get to the high point, to create a challenge of their own, something synonymous with climbing the high points and raising money at the same time. Now, the beauty of this program is that, number one, it's a fun event for everybody. But number two, we're going to divide the fundraising in each state 50%, so that half of the money will stay in their state or region if they don't have a cancer center in their state. That will create a Harriet's Helping Hand program to provide that financial and emotional support. So I'm very excited because I get calls every week from people all over the country that Google us and say, I really need assistance, can you help? And it's so hard with the amount of money that we've raised here in our own community to be able to help somebody in Minneapolis or Albuquerque or what have you. So this program is a program that I believe has $1 million potential, and I'll be able to say yes to these people.
Well, it sounds like a great way to extend your reach beyond your current community.
Yes.
And I'm wondering how people can find out. Is there a website? Is there a place to go if somebody wants to sign up or climb their highest peak in their state or put together a team for that? How can they find that?
Wow. Yes, Vicki, there is a website, but it hasn't been finalized yet, so I don't have that web address yet. But they can go on the Climb for Cancer Foundation website, which is www.climbforcancerfoundation.org. Mm-hmm. And the link to the 5051 website will be on the Climb for Cancer Foundation website.
It'll go live soon, hopefully. Our board meets this weekend, actually tomorrow, finalize some issues. So we're organizing in order to be able to climb in June. So as you can imagine, a fundraiser of this nature, we need to reach out to participants. We really want to get a team in every state. We'd like to have multiple teams in the states that we can have the connection to. So through Rotary clubs, through Boy Scouts, through other activities, other entities, maybe we can have that far-reaching effect. We look at it as a very sustainable and growing type of fundraiser. to date, our biggest fundraiser is Kilimanjaro, where 10 or 12 people come together, solicit their own individual networks, are able to raise money that comes to the foundation, and we might net $100, $120, maybe even $150,000 on those years. But when we don't have a Kilimanjaro in the bucket, then our fundraising does dip, and we look at the 50-51 challenge as that opportunity to get on a much more sustainable, exponential growth type activity that then our success in 2020 will breed success for 2021 and hopefully continue on. So again, the sustainability, the expansion of the services that we can provide meet not only the needs here, but allow folks in their own community to have a helping hand.
Yep. And you know what I love the most about this is obviously the work that you guys do is amazing, and the help that you give to patients and families is amazing. But what I think is really cool, and one of the reasons that you guys are a great fit for the Ignite Stories of Leadership podcast, is because what you've done is you've taken what your passion is and you've combined that with a cause, and you're making a difference. So I guess my final question would be for you, Ron. What would you tell somebody who wants to make a difference in their lives, in their community, with their family, with their companies, doing what they love? How would they take that step to make it happen, to bring it to reality? What advice would you give to them?
First of all, you have to have a heart. If you have a heart and you have a passion for a cause, don't be afraid to fail. Just jump in with both feet. The rewards that you will get, it's like that commercial, the rewards are priceless. It's hard work. I don't want to disillusion anybody. It is hard work, but the rewards that you get from it so far surpass the tiredness you get from working on this. I try to encourage, I get an opportunity, especially since climbing Everest, to speak to children from kindergarten to doctoral students at the university. And the message I give them is to dream, to follow those dreams, to work hard, get an education, and give back. That's the most important thing. That's what we're all supposed to do for one another.
Mm-hmm. Rory, I know you're passionate about this as well. Is there any advice that you would give to our listeners in terms of how they could bring this and maybe even bring their corporations along, with it? I'm sure there's lots of different possibilities, but what advice would you give to somebody if they really wanted to make a difference where they're at, not necessarily with the Climb for Cancer, but with their own, with their own passions? Yeah,
I'd say educate yourself. To some degree, you don't really know what's out there, what the needs are until you're exposed to it. I've heard stories before where it's like, if I'd only known before now, I would have helped. Mm-hmm. So really, open yourself up, get out there, look and see what the needs are. You'll find something that touches your heart, it'll touch your mind, and then you put those two things together, you can make a difference. Find some relationships. The relationship that I have with Ron has certainly given me this opportunity. Many other people find their relationships as avenues to service, but keep in mind, the Bible says it's better to give than to receive, and when you give that gift to someone, especially if you're helping them in their darkest moment, yes, you'll definitely be touched. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you both for being on Ignite and for giving so much of yourselves to a great cause. In just a moment, we'll be back with a few more notes on Ignite.
Are you a career changer or a budding tech pro who's looking to start their career in IT? I'm Wes Bryan, and along with my fellow IT Pro TV edutainer Cherokee Boos, we've just shot a new show just for you. Each week, we'll dive into topics to help you launch your career in tech. Watch how to get started in IT on YouTube now. Just head to youtube.com/ITProTV to watch and look for new episodes every Saturday at 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time.
Welcome back to Ignite. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Ron and with Rory. Thanks for listening to Ignite. Please like us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and subscribe on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. From all of us at Ignite, we'll see you next time.